We're recording another one of these intros. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Peasant Party Podcast. I am your host, Charlotte Warren, and to my right is...
Annabelle. Hi again. How are you?
I am doing so well. We're going to have a fun one today. We're going to piss some people off. You take any pills this morning?
I took my Wellbutrin this morning.
Oh,
yes.
nice.
I did not take my birth control because I'm in the last week on the sugar pill, so I don't even take that.
I love it. I took
So,
30 milligrams of Adderall XR.
Let's go.
Let's fucking go. It's 5 o'clock.
Medicated. So let's go.
Medicated as we should be, which is an allusion to shit we're going to talk about. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm so excited, honestly.
I am too, because we've been like, we need to tackle some of these topics as they come up. But we'll be honest, it's hard doing this. Sometimes it's kind of like, let's make sure we don't interrupt each other. That's going to bring some attention based on the keywords we're going to use. So we wanted to make sure we were prepared to handle these types of topics.
Totally.
Which we will then get into. But yeah, enough of all the drugs we do. Yeah, how's everything going with you? How's Zach?
Ooh, Zach is great. He's doing quite well. Yeah, I don't know. Things are going very well. We have seen each other every day for the last 2 weeks or something like that. So that's been nice. And when we had dated before, we were always long distance. So I have never had a relationship where I can see the guy every day if I want to. Or I guess way back, when I was much younger, but I was always, doing some complicated ass shit. It's just nice, when you start dating someone to just kind of be like, when you want to see them so badly, just be like, hey, can I come over right now? Mm-hmm. And I'll never take that for granted again, because long distance takes that away from you.
I can absolutely relate.
Yeah.
Hopefully only a matter of time though, but totally. No, that's good to hear. And then I also had someone ask, they're like, "Oh yeah, I love your co-host. The chemistry's great." This is my sister. If anyone hasn't realized that yet, she's significantly cooler than I am. But if you can see the resemblance, she's also 2 years younger than me, despite being cooler and taller and a little less
28.
goofy.
Yeah, I mean, our entire lives, everybody's always told us that we have the same voice. So I imagine, obviously, it sounds like an ocean of difference to me, but I can only imagine on a podcast, sometimes, even just hosts that are just friends, you get their voices confused. So I hope...
That's true.
I hope we're not getting confused.
Yeah. I hope people can tell us apart. I don't know. I sure as hell can. But yeah, I think that's kind of us. Yeah. And then we are both, I'm 30, she is 28. So according to some of y'all that we're going to shit on today, we're old as fuck.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I am, that's for sure.
Let's ready to go. Yeah. So anyway, about I guess we're going to kind of pivot off of Zach to go into our first topic. Zach has a certain aesthetic to him, I would say.
Yes.
He's got a look.
Yes. Absolutely. He has a very curated look.
Yes. And while I think Zach is a very unique and special snowflake, I've noticed that, pre-Zach, you tended to date maybe guys that looked a little bit like Zach. Would you say that you have a type?
Yes, but not in look like him biologically. It's more just first of all, prerequisite, number one thing, I will not date a guy with no tattoos at this point. I honestly probably wouldn't date a guy who didn't have neck tattoos at this point.
Nice.
Because I'm just so obsessed with it. I have to have it. And it just makes a huge difference for me because tattooing is my entire fucking life, and art, and being able to talk to somebody about that stuff and have them really understand it is very special to me. And then I like tall guys, obviously, duh. I love a tall man. But Zach has a very, how do I even pin this down? I would say he's very 70s Western.
Yes.
It's been described as the alternative.
I love that. I love that description.
But it fits. Yeah, totally. It fits well together. I would say my aesthetic, it complements that, but is not I'm not the alternative. I don't think. that's another very specific like Austin look for women, I feel. I feel like I am like trailer park, like 70s trailer park, like girlfriend.
Yeah, I think you and Zach go together. I think like I just think the one thing that's missing is like stuff that's like very clearly Western, but aside from that, the aesthetic is perfect. Like you're not wearing like full blown cowboy boots or a cowboy hat.
I am not. No.
Beyond that, though, I think the aesthetic matches pretty clearly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said he was gonna help me out. He was like, I don't wanna make you feel like I'm forcing this on you, but like, you know, if you ever wanted me to like style you or whatever, and I'm like, yes, please style me. I'm dying for him to like pick out like a cute little like 70s Western girl outfit, because I just kind of do my own thing. I really don't care. Like I've never had a specific aesthetic. I'm not like trying for anything. It just kind of like is what it is. But I love a little costume, you know? I love a little dress up party.
Yes. Yeah.
Dress me up.
Yeah, Zach dresses well.
Yeah.
And obviously you weren't always a tattooer. You had a life before tattooing.
I was a totally different woman before, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the type of guy you dated reflected that. So, I mean, like, would you say that your type has changed over time?
Absolutely, yes.
At
oh
22,
my God.
what would you have said your type was?
Oh my God. Okay, who was I dating when I was 22? I was dating...
You don't have to use names.
I was dating a boy who I had gone to college with, and we were in Poets Club together because I was an English major and I loved poetry. And then he ended up doing the same like spoken word poetry class that I had taken. There was just a lot of overlap there. And he was like the president of the Poets Club. Swoon. Oh my God. And everybody just absolutely loved him. They thought he was just like a genius. I thought his poetry was okay. Oh, it was good for a man. But it wasn't like excellent. But because he was so into poetry, that also meant he was really into rapping, white rapping. He's a white man. So after college, he like really tried, and I think he still might even be doing it.
Is
I'm
he
not
really?
sure.
If this is who I'm thinking of, I didn't know that.
I mean, he pursued it for a while, and now I think he does other media things, but like maybe still does it on the side.
Okay, good for him.
So yeah, 22 was a white rapper. So I would have to say no. I have eclipsed that interest far and away. Yeah, I was a totally different person. And the other thing is, when you're younger, you allow a lot more. You allow your partner to get away with a lot more. I mean, depending on how much you want them to like you, which as a young woman,
you're insecure. I think all young people are insecure.
I think,
like,
I think it goes both ways for sure.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, but at 22, like, male validation to me was a hell of a lot more important than it is now.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Totally. And like, would you say like there was more of a interest or preference around things that maybe were a bit more superficial, whether that was appearances or status than you have now? Like, do you feel like you've gone to preferring things that are a bit more like intangible in the form of anything like that? Yeah.
I mean, like image wise, I always say tattoos because that means that we have like this like common ground. I wouldn't say it's like purely an aesthetic thing. When somebody has tattoos, that to me that says that he's not a little bitch.
So that but it's a common interest, though.
That's a common interest. No, I wouldn't necessarily say that like I valued looks more at that time, but I would say a lot more criteria has been added to my standard.
Interesting.
So yes, looks matter, but they're certainly not everything, and other things matter a lot more.
What would you say is like the best like intangible quality that matters the most to you right now?
That's such a good question. I think probably creativity, because when I'm with a creative person and we like are able to discuss and build ideas and like brainstorm, dude, I feel like a fucking genius. I love that shit. It's like, it's such a difficult feeling to describe, but like when two creatives meet, it's like such a magical thing.
Love that.
Yeah. What about you? What's your most important?
Gosh. I think someone that can make me laugh. Like, I think just having a good sense of humor, like, and I hate the terms, like, don't take themselves too seriously, because I just think that means, like, you don't take anything seriously.
Yeah.
But I think, like, when the computers are shut for the day, you're not working, just someone that you can laugh with and go through life with. That's something that's so intangible. I can't put a metric on it the way you could put a certain thing about somebody's appearance or something like about someone's job or something like that. It's just, it's a vibe. And like, that's something I feel like that can feel a little bit foreign to some people, is like the vibe, or as the kids call it, the riz. Where it is like having charisma, having the back and forth, the flow that matters.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
So you were saying, like, what is the difference from now back to like 22, which is a really far jump?
Yeah.
Would you say a lot has changed for you in the last 2 years since you were my age? Like the standards and the things that you want out of men, like has that changed just in your experience in the last couple of years dating?
So I think some things that are just unique too with just my experience is, obviously I was 26, turned 27 when COVID hit. And I think that has changed a lot of people's dating experiences regardless of their age. So I wonder if there hadn't been something like that where you feel like you were losing a year of dating or something like that. Like, where people maybe got a bit more reliant on the apps because they didn't have other options. Like, I wonder how much that has done, not just to myself, but others, but at such a pivotal time. But I do think, and I think that's why you see things like the 27 Club, people, really having that moment. Like, I feel like 27 is sort of one of those moments where you really look at, like, when you're 22 and you look to your left, look to your right at people that are the exact same age as you are. Generally speaking, you're doing the same thing. Maybe some people went to college, some people didn't. Maybe there's one person who, went to the Christian school, got married right out of school. But for the most part, you're kind of in the same place. And then kind of from there, you kind of focus on a certain area of your life that you're, maybe a bit better at. You focus on your talents. And at 27, you look to all those people, and where people have gone, the paths people have taken are so diverse. And you kind of look back and you're like, holy crap, like the path I chose is starting to matter and put me somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember having that realization when I was 27 in a way that I wasn't having years before. And I think at 30 to 27, I think I'm just more certain and feel less confused than when I was 27. But like I think there's something to be said for why you see the deaths at 27, the 27 Club, because that is such a very pivotal time for a lot of people of all genders, like all backgrounds. It's been going on since many years.
Totally. I definitely. And I think people are talking about it a lot more now too. I've seen people talk about it a lot on like TikTok. Just at 27, for some reason, something really shifts. I think like Stevie Nicks had talked about it or something like that. Because that's when the Rumors album, I think, like came out. She was like 27 or something like that. But yeah, I'm now post 27, but looking back, I'm like, yeah, 27 just felt like this vortex. It felt like it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It had a lot of realizations, but it was also just like this insane spiral. And now that I'm kind of just barely like spat out of the vortex, like things are becoming clearer to me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Maybe that's too metaphorical, but that's how it feels.
I feel like I'm out of my confused 27-year-old vortex. But one of our listeners who wrote a letter to us isn't, and I know just because of the type of topics we're going to touch on, you've had the chance to read this letter ahead of time. I'm going to read it to everybody.
Yeah.
And that is also why we kind of led into it by sharing our own personal experiences. Yeah, for better or worse. Yeah, we're talking about those Alpha Bro podcasts today and the influences they have on people.
Let's go! I'm so pumped.
Annabelle has wanted to talk about this for a while.
Yes, dude, it's a heavy hitter, but like, God, Charlotte, when we talk about this, you have so many incredible points to make. You have so many thoughts. You are like. It's crazy. You've researched this.
It's been thrown in my fucking face. I will say that. It's been thrown in my face. I couldn't ignore it. I would love to. I envy the people that, because I have a lot of friends who don't fucking do TikTok, who have no idea who any of these fucking people are.
Totally.
And I envy the fuck out of them because people, what do you think of the Fish Sheep podcast? I think they're all fucking stupid. They're all grifters and they want to make money off you. And if you're new here, because we're putting these things in the search terms, welcome. You follow a bunch of grifters who are profiting off your fucking loneliness.
Are we allowed to name them, or is that?
I mean, I just like we have to go down a list of who's who, and we're not like I want to focus on our listener because our listener isn't so much part of this, but I know just based on the search terms we use, we're going to have different people coming in, or kind of new people coming in, and we're putting our clear stance ahead. But if you are like, we're not necessarily man bashing, we're bashing these fucking grifter creators. We love our male audience. It's 60-40, as I've said. But yeah, so our mailbag is coming from a 28-year-old woman. The subject: is there any truth to what the Alpha Bro podcasters say? 28 female writing in, partially question, another part venting frustration. Found you on TikTok months ago, and while some TikTok dating advice is useful, most dating stuff I see on my For You page has made me depressed and left me with more questions than answers. To be specific, a lot of dating advice talks about single women aging and their value decreasing with age while men age like quote-unquote wine. These creators will say that if a woman's 30 and single, the likelihood of her never marrying is extremely high. I don't think that is true based on what I see among my older coworkers, but some of these creators have shared statistics that say otherwise. It's hard to know who or what to trust, and it's hard not to feel like the best move is to rush into a relationship I'm not ready to be in or settle for a person I'm not attracted to if I want any hope of marriage and children. What really led me to spiral, I tried creating dating content, making a video about how my preferences have changed since I was 22 or 23, since deleted. I talked about how now, at 28, I prefer a guy who's kind, stable, family-oriented over more superficial qualities. I always thought this type of shift in preferences was normal and showed more about my personal growth than anything. The video was bombarded by a bunch of alpha male bros commenting that I had been, quote-unquote, ran through in my early 20s, using all of the words like alphas, betas, cucks, and the SMV term you joke about. Yeah, it was a bunch of blank profiles, and I'm sure some were kids, but I'd be lying if the volume of comments like this didn't make me question my sanity or worry about my dating prospects. I always saw myself getting married and having a family, and it never occurred to me that this might not happen until the last 6 months or so. I thought doing things like getting ahead at work, personal growth made me a better or more attractive option to men, and all this makes me wonder if I put my priorities in the wrong place. So I guess my question is, and I know you might be biased, so I am asking you to please put the jokes aside a little bit. I make a lot of jokes about this shit. Is there any truth to what these guys are saying? Did you ever feel panic before you met your boyfriend? And do you have any single friends struggling with dating now that they're 30 plus? Are your single guy friends ages 30 plus that opposed to dating women their own age / do they find them less attractive? Appreciate the insight. Looking forward to the discussion. All right. Impassioned read of that.
Yes.
Initial thoughts. Because we've got a lot to unpack. We might not get to our second letter.
Right. And we had read over this before. And I mean, it's so relatable, really. I know that when I was going through this, I felt completely alone. Also, I felt like, oh my God, am I the only one of like everybody who's maybe not going to get married? And if I don't get married, what then? Like, what then if I don't have, it's not even necessary. It's not even like I need a white picket fence and 2.5 kids. It's like, I want a life partner.
Right.
You know?
Totally. And I think like, yeah, that feeling, it's the feeling that she's feeling here, I think is normal, because I think anytime someone says something that goes against what you want, when you've been looking for something your entire life, yeah, you're going to say like, okay, what the fuck? Is there any truth to this? If someone comes on impassioned with a little microphone, even if you know they're full of shit or you really think they're full of shit. We've got a lot to unpack, I think, with all this.
I know, right? Where do we start?
First, let's start with the Alpha Bro podcasters. I want to start there.
Oh, what is SMV?
Sexual marketplace value.
Oh, okay.
The term that I shit on.
Okay,
it's quite funny. I made a whole like fan fiction and lore where people who use this term are sexually attracted to their groceries, because that's what it sounds like the way they talk. Like, what are you doing? Going to the grocery store and fucking a pineapple? It's like, nobody fucking talks like this. If you want, I'll tell this woman, I'll tell anybody who's new here who uses these words unironically, go to a party, say the phrase sexual marketplace value aloud. And then ask yourself, do I still have friends after this? Are you invited to more parties? No, because you're talking like a fucking loser. These grifters are encouraging you to speak in fucking loser speak. Never fucking talk like that. Anyway, it's a stupid fucking term. But kind of yeah, this alpha, it's a buzz. They're big on their stupid little buzzwords. They have their whole little fucking glossary.
Yes.
So we're gonna go through these Alpha Bro podcasters. We're gonna speak to this woman, and we're gonna speak to the general audience. I do have a male audience that I know, is not not interested in this type of content. I don't think I have much overlap with these fresh fruit whatever podcast people, because my audience is 25 to 44, like disproportionately. And that type of content is designed for people between pretty much the ages of 18 to 23. So this like red pill, manosphere, I call it dork pill because it's fucking loser shit.
The way I understand it as well, it was directly a like, you might have told me this. It was like the pickup artist to this red pill pipeline.
Yes.
And there's a reason for that.
Yes. So this audience, so who this content is for is not for this listener. This is not, it's made for young men, primarily between the ages of 18 to 23. And it's primarily consumed amongst that demographic, young men who maybe are struggling socially and don't have a lot of support. It's a lot of times it's, men who don't have a positive male role model in the home who they can look to, who has a positive, relationship with, their mother. It's young men who maybe are from disadvantaged or marginalized communities, who maybe don't have parents at home at all. Maybe English is their second language. They're struggling to make social connections. They're from, areas that don't have things like sports or, other groups where they can make, a lot of friends, positive male role models. So this type of content appeals to that demographic, primarily because they're struggling with talking to women.
Right. And it does, like, in a sense, appeal to, like, young white males, white cisgendered males, yes, but in a lot of ways, like that's a huge variety of man or boy, and in a lot of ways they are marginalized.
Yeah,
so
100%.
They're vulnerable.
Low income,
yes, exactly.
People that have learning disabilities, people who, because a lot of times, like we said about, what makes people attracted to people, it's a lot of intangibles. Like we said, the kids call it Riz, but people where it's just, why aren't the girls talking to me? They will have a checklist in their mind. They're mathematical in their thinking. What's the do X get Y of this versus, and you tell them things like social skills. What is that? You tell them something like sexual market value, where you can rank, what makes people more attractive. They're gonna like, oh fuck, some answers here, even though it is a complete pseudoscience term that nobody really uses, and people would think you're a loser if you said it aloud. Nonetheless, yeah, so that's who that type of audience is. But something else that audience struggles with, because, they struggle with talking to women, what they see when they go out into their school, a lot of times like high school, college, the Greek system is around that they're not a part of. They feel like it's cliquey. Why do these guys get it? Why don't I? They'll sell with these like red pilly content. Yeah, first the thing that comes in that has a little bit of truth to it is they do push self-improvement. Take a shower, get a haircut, go to the gym. All good things that we should all do. And
that's where it starts, too.
That's where it starts. And, anyone could agree, like someone who's been going to the gym and is clean is more attractive than somebody who isn't. Rocket science right there.
Sure.
But where they kind of go south is where they're selling this message to these young men who are consuming the content, guys that are struggling socially, who are pissed off that, why do these guys figure it out? Why can't I? And they say, hey, young men watching our show, spending, $20 every super chat so that we can shit on women. These women who are going for these older guys who are cooler than you, whatever, they're going to be doing that. And you're going to be, you're not getting the girls now, but here's what's going to happen. The script's going to flip in 10 to 15 years. All the women who said no to you, they're going to have their fun, quote unquote, get ran through. That's the word they love to use. You're going to be improving yourself. And then lo and behold, you're going to be 38 years old and you're going to have your pick of all the hot 22-year-old women. And then all these women who said no to you are going to die alone with their cats. They're going to realize way too late when they're fat and ugly that they don't have any options, and you're going to be the one who wins. They are selling a revenge fantasy to people who don't know any better. Until then, yeah, it's horrible.
Terrible. Like, even though I'm, a woman and on the receiving end of the violence, technically, like, I do feel so sad for, like, these people who are being deceived and being told that, like, yeah, it sucks right now, but if you keep buying my content, when you're 38, you're going to have everything you want. And then they're going to hit 38 and have none of it.
Well, because, yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, first, I guess one element of truth, do guys, you know, get better with age? I think we all do it from, you know, between 18 to like 25, in a sense that we all get more confident. Like, yeah, a guy gets more confident. He knows what he wants. Like, you have more just experience with social interaction. Like, we become better daters as we get older.
Yeah.
But this like revenge fantasy is, you know, it's very much, it's such a grift too, in the sense where it's like, until you know, all this time, until then, keep buying my course, keep paying for the super chat, keep watching my content, and, you know, sending me money so that I can keep selling you what you want to hear. And what's crazy too is, even if these guys genuinely believe what they're saying, because side note, I think that, you know, there's a lot of money to be made on people's loneliness. Like, if you have someone who doesn't know any better, what's going on around them, what works, what doesn't, and they are lonely, and you can profit off that loneliness, holy fuck, there is money to be made.
If you can take somebody's sadness and turn it into anger, make them feel like a maligned person, like they've been done wrong, done some injustice, that is profitable.
And that is exactly what they're doing. They don't give a fuck about it.
Because anger, like, usually leads to results, you know?
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
By force.
Exactly. Even if, like, there was no grift involved and these guys genuinely believed in what they were saying as well, the types of, you know, men that are pitching these content, you know, they're older men. They're good looking. They dress well. They appear, keyword appear, to be doing well, having money, being in relationships with younger women. They're in their 30s or so. If you see any of the hosts, I don't go down the list of who's who. I think hopefully we have Angela Knight or Rudy or someone to come in. We can go through these friends of the pod. They might be coming in the next few weeks. But like, you know, all these people live a life that is so different than the average person. So even if they believed what they were saying, what they're pitching to people, what they're selling is so different than the average person, to where, you know, the person on the receiving end of this type of content is not living a life where some of these things that they're saying apply. So just to kind of give a rundown on these like dork pill personalities, a lot of times they live in Miami, they live in Las Vegas, they are part of the club scene. In a lot of ways, while not, you know, mainstream entertainment, they're part of the entertainment industry. They are alternative entertainers. So as a result, they put themselves in situations where they're going to be on camera. They're going to be surrounded by people that are, you know, of, you know, pretty diverse backgrounds. We're also looking to be on camera, and people who need to be on camera, and that's how they make their money, need to do shit that makes the camera point at them. Sometimes that shit's going to be a little bit crazy. Sometimes it's also going to be, you know, the places they go, like they'll put money into looking richer than they are, or spending money on certain experiences that they really can't afford, because in some way to them it's a business expense. And so where am I going with this? A lot of what these personalities will describe to the average guy who's between 18 to 23 or so, you know, maybe at home at their parents' house, if they're still in high school, if they are in college, they're at an average university or community college, something like that. Yes. Very average. They are telling them about a life that this guy does not live, and that guy is taking it in, you know, taking it as fact. For example, this type of dork pill personality will say things, for example, like I guess, where do I start? Saying things like the discussion that, you know, OnlyFans is this common occurrence that everybody's on.
God, yeah.
The way these podcasts, and side note, these are not dating podcasts. The Fresh Fruit podcast is not a dating podcast. It's a gender issues debate / niche discussion of romantic issues for people in a very, very specific demographic in clubby cities. That is what that podcast is. It is not a dating podcast for the average person, because nobody, like, I remember when I first learned what OnlyFans was, it was like literally less than a year ago. Someone put like OnlyFans ? On one of my videos, and I was like, I thought they were asking me if the people in the video were actually my friends, like thinking I had like fake friends and like recruited people to be in a video, and I was like, no, they're my friends. That's what I thought. I thought like that's what I thought.
No, they're my friends.
That is what I thought, because that was the first,
so
the only people I know that are on OnlyFans I met through TikTok. I'm an average person. I don't really reveal much about who I am in a parallel life to this. I have a corporate job. I have for years. I have a lot of friends who also have corporate jobs. nobody's on fucking OnlyFans. It's like something that like has sort of like sometimes people joke, oh, we could sell feet pics on OnlyFans. Nobody's on this. No one's that I know is consuming it. I think, you know, maybe there's some look at the Instagram butt model things sort of from the men, but like there is not. So the way these podcasts talk about OnlyFans, it's like, you know, they'll say things like, you never know who has an OnlyFans. It's like, no, you will know who has an OnlyFans, because to have an OnlyFans that's worth having, you have to promote it. Like, right. Otherwise, why have an OnlyFans if no one's going to pay for it and use it? And to promote it, that means people around you are going to know you have fucking OnlyFans. The girl that's sitting next to you at your desk, 23-year-old recent college graduate, she does not have fucking OnlyFans. You know what she did yesterday? She went to the gym and then she watched The fucking Bachelor. She's not on fucking OnlyFans. Like, these fucking podcasts need to shut the fuck up, because that is something that OnlyFans, why they talk about OnlyFans for like the modern common dater is ridiculous. Yeah.
I do have to say, I actually do know a number of people who have OnlyFans, but obviously
and no disrespect to anyone who has it. We're not shitting on it. We're just saying
niche. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum. It is an incredibly like complicated thing. There's a lot of things to like look at with that, but number one, being like these men grossly underestimate what it takes to have an OnlyFans and to like find any success on there.
The women who go on these podcasts, like I think when they say like, oh, I make this much money, the reason they do that a lot of times is because if you say I make $30,000 a month on OnlyFans, people say there must be something worth it behind the payroll. Mm-hmm. So like how much money you can actually make on it is like very much not what it is presented as. So anyone who's telling you it's easy money, I won't, have nothing against anyone who wants to do that. I think that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. Also, side note, why do people go on these podcasts? It's always like people that are on OnlyFans, because what happens, while these women are getting shat on in the comments, you know what happens? I think that, like, I forget whose podcast it was on, but someone was saying, like, girls that went on this podcast, they knew they were going to get shit on, but they would see, like, $12,000 in OnlyFans signups from those appearances. So the guys that are shitting on them are still buying the OnlyFans. So it's like, of course, because nobody else would go on these freaking podcasts. It would get you fired from any other job.
Can I just break that down real quick? Like, this podcast, I actually have never listened to or watched it, but what we're referring to is basically like a circle of dudes who are pretty far on one extreme end of like gender and sexual politics, and then they will randomly invite on like beautiful women, sometimes women who are sometimes it's OnlyFans girls, sometimes it's people who are
model, something in the alternative
or like
entertainment,
more schourly, professions. They've never have. Okay.
It would get you fired from any. Okay. Like I think the closest thing they get to like scholarly is it's like influencer debater type. So they're maybe not OnlyFans, or like I know like the whatever fucking podcast has had people come from like the Turning Point USA organization, stuff like that, to like try to take one other side. So it's all influencers who gain something out of being there, because if you weren't in one of those types of positions, you would gain absolutely nothing from being on there. It's not going to make you fucking smarter. You're not having real discussion. It's also like having these be like, a podcast. You can't have 10 people on a podcast. Like, I've been on podcasts with 4 people. I'm like, that's too many. Like, you can't have a real discussion.
No, you can't.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Cutting off people's microphones, like.
Literally. But that's like, it's a clusterfuck. So they're not enjoyable to watch, like, for actual discussion. I've totally went down the road of like, the way they talk about these, like, it's like as though, everyone's on OnlyFans. And with who they invite on the show, if you're a guy who doesn't socially interact with a lot of people, you might be like, like the woman next to me at the grocery store, she's on OnlyFans. They'll spread things like, they'll say, when they talk about like women who have traveled before, they always jump to like, if she's traveled, like if she tells you like, I went to Spain last summer, the instinct that they jump to, like any woman who's traveled, it's because some, wealthy elite man flew her out and she went over there to sleep with him. Like, that is the type of message they spread. Like, sure, maybe if you're some sort of niche influencer type, do they get involved in escorting? Sure. Those are people in the entertainment industry. Has anyone ever hit you up on Instagram, and you're like significantly more attractive than me? Has anyone ever hit you?
You take that back right now. You never fucking say that again.
Has anyone ever hit you up on Instagram or otherwise inviting you to Dubai to go on their yacht that you've never met before?
This shit drives me nuts because I hear this a lot too. Like, oh yeah, women get flown out. Women get flown out. If somebody would offer to fly me out somewhere, that would be fucking dope. You gotta invite my man now too, but but I have never had an offer to no, absolutely
I've never
not.
been
I have
flown
made
anywhere.
No, dude. I've
never had anyone ask.
Never had anybody offer to pay my bills. Like I've been taken out on like some nice dates, but that's the extent of it. Like,
and those were guys that wanted to go on dates. That wasn't transaction. Like this idea that like all the women are getting invited to be flown out. No. If most of the women who have traveled somewhere, if they tell you, oh, I went to Spain as a graduation trip, you know how she paid for that? Her graduation money from her fucking grandma. Or, I saved up money for Starbucks. I wanted to take 2 weeks to do a backpacking trip before I started my new job at Oracle in August. That is how those trips look like. But no, according to these podcasts, things go a little bit differently. So it's so outside of the norm. They say that, about, women who have traveled. So they're like they're putting this very like unrealistic picture of what the average woman looks like. And then, guys that don't know any better, who struggle socially, are having this impression that, the women that they're interacting with in their day-to-day look more like this. And it's doing, fuck what it's like, yeah, of course I think it's misogynistic as shit. But like, if you look at the people it's influencing, guys who are struggling, like that's who it's having the negative impact on. Like it's putting them in a darker place and it's not helping them. So that is who that type of content is for. The idea is like it's a revenge fantasy presented to young men who don't know any better. So to the woman who wrote this letter, we've gone on our rant. That's who this is for. Like, and the TikTok For You page has put those types of that type of content in front of the average person in a way that it wouldn't have been 2 years ago. These would have been fringe things on the internet, and it's in your face, and it's not for you.
Yeah, it's just so like it is fueling this myth that women, for one, use their sexuality as like a driving force behind everything that they do, their career, their business, their pleasure, everything. Which of course is not true, but it also like drives this point home that like men, you don't have that and you will never have that. You will never be able to make money like such easy money and have everything handed to you the way that all women do. All women have this opportunity and they have like life handed to them on a platter and you don't.
Yeah. I'm average as fuck. I've never gotten anything like that.
Yeah, it's
and you can
so
say,
crazy.
Hotter. I know people a little like I don't know any fucking movie actors, whatever. I don't know what their life looks like, but I have no friends who've been flown out to anywhere. So this stuff is horse shit.
So crazy because it's not like men ignore me. It's not like I don't get male attention. Like
it's just from average dudes.
It comes from
who are
left
in
and
the
right
same
everywhere.
Socioeconomic class as
exactly.
us.
But like they're just regardless of like where they stand on that, like on the socioeconomic status, they're still like not just offering free flights to bitches.
No,
like
no,
nobody offer like there's still gonna be
guys with self-respect aren't really fucking doing that. You say put that in the bank for when you have an actual girlfriend. That's what I think most reasonable guys who aren't fucking dorks watching this shit are trying to sell this.
Boyfriend fly me shit. I have purchased like every flight and plane ticket for every man I've ever dated. So
yeah,
I'm gonna just put that out right now. I am mommy, so don't even fucking come at me with that Dubai shit.
Yeah, I've never been. I have no interest in going to Dubai. But no, and we're totally like we got to make sure we're moving along. But so to the woman who like wrote in, yeah, first this isn't for you. Second of all, you mentioned these statistics that these people seem to have. You know what's really funny about these people and grifters in general? They like to use statistics to their advantage in the form of cherry picking. So one of these studies that I think she mentioned about women who aren't married by a certain age, never getting married. I think that is from a study that I have actually dove into that it was repeated in these like dork pill circles. Hannah Davis, Pearl as some like to call her, as well as some of the Roma Tomato, whatever the fuck their names are, have been taking this study and misrepresenting it to the population. There is this study that people are communicating from this dork pill community that's going around where they're saying women who are between the ages of 25 to 44, in the year 2030, 47% of them will be single. And they're saying that that's up 3% from 2019, where only 43% were single. And so keep in mind,
it sounds so like if you are buying this statistic with no further evidence, like this is just such an outrageous.
So, and we'll get into what they're doing wrong. There are some too who are taking this statistic. And I'll go into what the statistic actually says. Some of them are saying, they're honing in on the age 25 versus 25 to 44. Some of them are saying that if they are single in 2030, the likelihood that they will be single for the rest of their lives, not just this 2030 year, is extremely high. There are some, because 25 to 44 is considered working age. Some people have tied it to, women who are working between these ages are less likely to find a husband because of this girl boss narrative. There are also some that are saying that this study was taken because, they want to look more at the single woman, and they're trying to invest more money in cat food because they're all going to die alone with their cats. None of that shit is true. Let's talk about where that study actually came from. In 2019, Morgan Stanley put together a study to look at, women's economic power, with the idea that people are delaying marriage until later. The average age of first marriage is now, I believe, 30 years old for women, 31, 32 for men. The average age gap between married couples is 2 to 3 years. So anyone who's saying, all these older men are marrying younger women, those are in the extremes. So this study was taken to really look at women's spending power, which is a lot different. If you think of a 30-year-old woman who is married with children 20 years ago is going to be spending her money a lot differently than a single woman. You have more money to spend on yourself. Maybe buy a nice purse versus buying your kids shoes. So Morgan Stanley puts out this study, and they even put in there things like, women are, single, and they keep in mind too, they are using, when they say single, they are using census data. So the U.S. Census, when they measure single, they are looking at who is legally single, which means unmarried, never been married. The census measures single, married, separated, divorced, and widowed. So when they say single, they are also including women who are engaged, cohabiting, in a relationship. It is not single in the sense of totally alone. So that skews it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's looking at single women, because that's really the only way you can get that much data. If you go and survey people, you have to trust what people tell you,
right.
which is flawed in itself.
Yeah, the number of people getting classically married has dropped significantly.
Exactly. So a lot of people
common law or whatever.
So that's happening, and then people are delaying marriage, but they are still getting married. But the survey says, women between the ages of 25 to 44 in 2019 was 43%. They predict it's going to be 2030. In 2030, it will be 47, or it's up by 3 or 4%. So 43 jumped to 47%. And we're not looking at the same batch of women and how many of them are still single. It's whoever's between the ages of 25 to 44 in that specific year, and legally single. So that's what it looks at. And the idea is, women, have more spending power, so the banks can invest more in things. And they specifically call out Gucci, Lululemon, more to spend on yourself. And because it's about women's economic power, they don't bring up the male numbers in it, despite the fact that if you look at the census data, it's directly paralleled with men. Yeah. It's just 3 years more, because the average age of first marriage is the average age gap between a married couple is 2 to 3 years. So it's skewed a little bit. It's affecting everybody. But the red pill people are using it to say that oh my God, women who are, they're all going to be single, they're all going to die alone, to pitch that revenge fantasy to people. It's falling in the laps of, women who aren't the intended audience for it. But of course, people are just, they're hearing these studies that are very much cherry picked. So no, they're not. None of the study has nothing about who's going to be single for the rest of their lives. I will also say the study is measuring the age group 25 to 44. The average age of first marriage is increasing, but they're still measuring the same demographic. So it's right. The 25 to 30. If you broke that down, I'm sure from 25 to 30, 30 to 35, things would look a lot different. The 44-year-olds or the 35-year-olds that aren't married is going to be, I would say, a lower, percentage than the younger women that are part of that survey are going to be skewing that in that standpoint. So these studies that they keep bringing up are very much, very, very heavily cherry picked. And so I would say too, if any of these people talk about studies, I challenge you, go find that study in the first place, read it in full, because you'll be surprised just in the study itself, exactly as it's written, how much is being cherry picked. I would also look at, not just who wrote it, or I'm sorry, not what it says, but who wrote it. Who's sponsoring it?
Who funded it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, with any statistic or study, if you can find a peer-reviewed study, that's best. But yeah, definitely, I'm trying to get through to this. I'm trying to get this point through to like people like our parents and like older people, just because you saw like a random statistic, you need to look into the facts there. You need to look into, who funded this study. Yeah,
because I mean, the Morgan Stanley one, that's funded by Morgan Stanley, but the intent wasn't. So that one they cherry picked the inside. But sometimes if it's not something using census data, if it's something, say, written by Focus on the Family, that's a conservative think tank. If it's written by, I'm trying to think of one for a liberal one so we can balance this out. But yeah, look at those because those are sometimes biased. And I would also say, look at how they collected their data. Now, this one did use census data, but something that comes with that, single, according to the census, is legally single. It's not I am alone. You also have to look at if it's something where they're going and surveying individual people. The way people kind of communicate, like there's selection bias. People who choose to participate in surveys in the first place are going to be a different type of person than the person that walks by those fucking people. So you have to look at that anytime you have a study. And a lot of times with these fucking grifters, especially because they're trying to make money off people, you're going to find a lot of holes. Something I will also tell this woman too is, when you go out in the world and talk to people and you observe what your friends are doing, she mentions this doesn't look like what her older coworkers are doing. What you see your friends doing, what you see people around you doing when they get married, that is data in of itself. That is observations from a primary source amongst people around you who are like you. So don't discredit that. If the people around you, because you're in a bigger city, are getting married at 32, 33, 34, that means something more so than some fucking little book that was taken 10 years ago in a city that is, much smaller than yours. Look at the people around you. Also, talk to other people. That is also something from a primary source. It's interviews. So don't discredit the things that are happening around you by going outside versus this weird fucking quote unquote studies that these fucking grifters are trying to pitch to people to sell them a revenge fantasy and profit off their loneliness. Don't listen to this fucking shit.
When these dudes talk about this study, and I'm sorry, what was it, like 47% or something like that?
Some of them will say more than half.
Okay, sure. So do they ever mention what percentage of men are expected to be single at that point, or are they implying that men are 100% taken as like a control group and 40
so what's interesting about it, and I think what's convenient about that study for them is because it's measuring women's economic power, they don't mention men at all. So but if you go and look for the census yourself, it's it looks exactly the same except it's skewed 3 years older.
Okay.
It's so funny too, because some of the things they cherry pick this other study. Like there was this other study that looked at, what the age that men and women find most attractive. And they look at, between the ages of for every year from ages 20 to 50, for men, for women. And they have pictures of people between the ages of 20 to 50. And they say, which do you find the most physically attractive? And the result that the Dork Pill people present is, on average, men find 22 to be the most attractive age amongst the women. That you ask all the men, no matter their age, average that they say is most attractive is 22. For the women, the average age they find to be the most attractive amongst the men is 38.
This one hurts so bad.
So this one is their truth to it. It is extremely cherry picked. So first off, if you go to the men that were between the ages of 20 to 50, were shown pictures of women, up until those ages, and said, which one do you find most physically attractive? Yes, the men did say it was anywhere between 20 and 25. There was some discrepancy, but it did average out to 22. I don't think anyone said anything over 25. And before anyone calls men animals, we'll come back to this. The average was 22. But if you go look at what the women said, the men that they found most attractive aged with them. So the women, as they asked, a 22-year-old, she found a 23, 24, 25-year-old to be most attractive. The 30-year-old found the 33, 34-year-old most attractive. And the guy they found most physically attractive age with them. Now, when the women turn 38, that's where it sort of plateaus. So once you keep going up, you have the women that are in their 40s, 50, it stops at 50. They find the 38-year-old man most attractive. That's where it kind of levels. But up until then, it's the guys that age with them. They're attracted to men their own age. And if you average those out, the average is 38. Despite the fact that if you look at every single age, no, the 22-year-old woman is not attracted to the 38-year-old man the way that they're communicating that she is. And they'll also say, like, oh, women want to date. They're all attracted to older men. Yes, men that are 2 to 3 years older than they are, not their fucking dad's age. So this whole, like, oh my God, like, you'll be able to get the 22-year-old woman when you're 38 because the average age that men peak is 38. No, no, it isn't.
No, babe.
No, it
Men
isn't.
do not peak at 38. That is... it's such a swindle.
It's a revenge. Well, it's, I mean,
fleece. Like,
it's also like, you could say, I mean, yeah, do men age like wine? Sure, men age like wine. Sure, women age like milk, in a sense that most wine, if you leave it out for 20 years, turns into fucking toxic vinegar. Aside from a very small percentage of it that gets sold for hundreds of dollars. And how do you get there? You take care of it. You take care of yourself. You have more money and stuff. In the same way that, yeah, a lot of milk turns sour after X amount of years. Like, there's a small percentage of it that becomes like fine fucking aged cheese. And it's a small percentage. So yeah, I guess the fucking moral I'm trying to tell with this really shitty metaphor is we're all getting fucking old. And if you take care of yourself and you have more money, which we're all peasants, so I don't know how much money we're all going to have, like, we're all getting fucking old. And that's how this shit works. I would be willing to say that someone who has a similar genetic background as you and lives a similar lifestyle to you, that is your opposite gender counterpart, is probably the attractiveness equivalent of you, regardless of your age. We're all going to die one day. So that's kind of like where that comes from. But getting older is a blessing.
Right. And then just one more point to tack on. We had talked about this where, like, yes, men, when looking at pictures, saw the 22-year-old as, like, the most attractive.
That's the thing, too. And that's where we talk about how the guy finds the woman physically attractive,
sure,
the 22-year-old woman. But if you can't, you also have to look at where did they collect this data? What was the data collection like? Sorry, we totally jump around. Very passionate on this topic. These kind of surveys was taken. They would bring people in a little room and say, who do you find most physically attractive based on pictures? And so, yeah, the guys, when no one else is around, are saying, oh, she's the prettiest. But it's not the same as putting them all in a room with all of these women physically and saying, go approach the one that you think is the most realistic fit for you. I think that would look a lot different. I think a lot more men would be more realistic and say,
right. Which
would I have
doesn't,
something in
and
common
being
with this?
realistic doesn't mean settling. It's
Exactly.
not like he's like, well, I guess I'll go for like something more bottom of the barrel because I can't get the 22-year-old. Like, no, you want to talk to and communicate with people.
Exactly.
Who you understand. And that is how somebody becomes attractive to you. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's like, so it's also, yeah, you have to look at the survey too. It's not like men are like, oh, they're going to all leave you for a 22-year-old. It's like, yeah, someone brought them in a little room and showed the pictures and said, which one do you think is the most physically attractive? Like, yeah, that's going to look a lot different than how men actually approach people out and about in the wild. Mm-hmm. So all of these statistics that they're claiming are so right and so accurate are fucking, they're very cherry picked. So I would say don't listen to that. I guess, and we have taken a lot of time to talk about this.
yeah.
Kind of going from that though, and the cherry pick statistics that these, the people that are making this are living different lives, that they are targeting a certain audience that is not you, to sell a revenge fantasy. Does dating, like, I think she wants to know, is there actual truth? Is there any form of truth to it? Does dating get harder as you're older, and why?
No, honestly. I mean, I feel like maybe it feels that way. And she's 28, so I feel like she's probably, generally same place that I'm at. It does not, it doesn't get harder. It's just your time is much more precious.
Yes.
And you don't have time for the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so, like, when you're 22, you're kind of like, who cares? We'll see where this goes. We're both cute. We both are kind of like directionless. If he hasn't gotten his life together yet and he has $0 in his bank account, it's fine because you do too. And then you guys are going to come up together, whatever. But when you're 28, the tolerance is is lower for that because you have reached a certain level of success and you expect your partner to carry their weight pretty much.
Yeah, and I would say that I think also something that's challenging is opportunities to meet people. If you're, say, in that, and I don't want to speak too much to the college audience because that's not really my audience, but I'll call it the friend group phase of life, like post-college up until age 26, 27. The way you live your life is like on Friday night, you go out and about with your friends. You are meeting more people than a 30-year-old is. If you go, like a lot of times, if you're 22, 23, 24, 25, on Friday, you go out, you go with, a friend group of people that's likely single, and then you go to some bar that's a bit dusty inside that has no chairs, and it's full of people and music, and you shake hands with a bunch of people whom you assume are also single. If someone hits you up on Saturday and says, you want to go back out again tonight and try this new thing that you've never done before, you have no idea if you'll like it, we're going to go play fucking underwater basket weaving pickleball, you'll probably be more likely to say yes. And what happens when you do shit like that? You're meeting more people naturally. When you're 30, you're more protective with your time in a sense that, someone says to me, you want to go to Buford's on a Friday? I'm like, fuck no. Absolutely not. If I'm going somewhere on a Friday, it's known quantities with friends, people I've met before. I'm not meeting as many new people. So dating, like having to go out and date and put yourself out there in situations where you're going to meet people in a dating context is a bit more forced. It might mean relying on dating apps more. It might mean, going outside your comfort zone, hoping you'll meet somebody in a way that people that maybe are coupled aren't. So I think that is what makes things a bit more challenging, in that that's the life you live. And it's also the same life that the people your own age or male counterparts are living too. So it does mean putting yourself out there more, I would say. And it has kind of those interactions. I think some other things that maybe make it harder. Do guys find women that are over 30 less attractive? Looking at them at face value, no. Would being 30 weigh into their decision? Yes, but not in a sense where it's like, oh, they're all dried up. I think it's a lot of guys feel like, that 29, 30, 31, things are serious from the start. You go on a date with a 29-year-old, you date her for 2 months, and you realize you're not ready for a relationship. You will likely be told, why did you waste my time? And the biological clock's going to be mentioned. If you do that with a 22-year-old, yeah, she might be annoyed with you and not want to, be pissed off, but you're not going to hear some sort of riot act. And, maybe you have more time to be flexible. You're not the asshole who wasted someone's time. So I think men know that. So I think that will be kind of factored in if you're a guy who's maybe not ready. They would maybe be averse to that if it seems like you want something more serious than they are confident they're ready for. I think also there's playing the numbers game in the same way that when I was single on dating apps, I would cut my age range off to 40 because in general, over 40 seemed like it was something I couldn't really relate to. Like it was just, at that point, we didn't like the same music, didn't like the same TV shows. Now if I went out and saw a 42-year-old that I found attractive, holy shit, we could vibe, I wouldn't be opposed to dating that person. But if you're in a big city trying to play the numbers game, yeah, like maybe I'll lose the one good 40-year-old so I can sift through people that are more likely not to be interested. And I think with men, sometimes it's like, the woman over 30, maybe it's more likely she's single parent with kids or something. If you're, guys never married, no kids, hoping for something with the same. So there's some numbers game, I think, there. But it's not, if they see you out and then you tell them you're 30, it's not like, oh my God, like 30-year-old, like, go away, you're unattractive physically.
Unless they are one of these perpetually on the internet type dudes. But, which, like, I think, yeah, if that's getting drilled into their head that 30 is, like, is, like, a dead stop for them, and, like, oh, if they're 30, they're almost, like, foul, then, yes, you're being brainwashed into thinking that women over 30 are, like, horrendous beasts. Yeah. But the rest of the world, I will fucking tell you right now, everybody that I'm friends with a lot of people in their 30s. Everybody that I know that's in their 30s, even women in their 40s, like they are that are single, are having fun, and like their confidence is the most beautiful thing about them. I mean, that aside, they are hot. Like people in their 30s are hot. It's not.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. And like she mentioned, these are probably these faceless people. The audience of this stuff is 18 to 23. The 18 to 23-year-old crowd does not know what 30 looks like. And I would know this because people don't know how old I am, and they try to like talk down to me when they're 25 and it's like, no, I'm 30. And then they're like, wait, what? So an 18 to 23-year-old can't fathom what 30 looks like. They have no peers that are in their 30s. it's this foreign concept to them. And then, of course, the
Yeah.
grifters who are selling this know better, but they have money to be making off of, depressed, lonely people. So they're not going to say otherwise. So yeah, no, like, and if you're someone that's in your late 20s and you're not trying to date the 18 to 23 crowd, I don't think you're going to come across these guys. Maybe there are some who don't grow out of it. That's the other thing too, is like this 18 to 23 crowd, like that follows this like dork pill. You notice why it stops at 23, because a lot of times that's when you graduate college, you move to a big city and you're around other people and you realize, women aren't so bad. This wasn't that hard. I can go make friends, and you ditch this. You're like, what the fuck was this red pill shit? Yeah. So it's like, you're not going to come across that in like, because of the For You page on TikTok, it's coming in front of you in a way that it wouldn't. This used to be fringe shit on the internet. I do think like maybe there's a bigger portion of people that are watching it, but I think guys that are well-adjusted kind of see this as more of like a Jerry Springer show thing that they don't take seriously, because they bring on crazy characters who say fucking crazy shit. Like I see some of the stuff the women say, I'm like, I don't know anybody like that. Like this is somebody who's trying to say weird shit for views. Yeah. So don't listen to this fucking shit. And please go outside, and if you want any further proof that nobody in the real world thinks like this, talks like this, go to a party and say this phrase, sexual market value allowed, and watch yourself never get invited to parties again, because that is fucking loser speak.
Can I ask you one question before we are done? Have you ever been approached by somebody who pulled some of those tactics, or like spoke any of those ways, or pickup artistry or anything like that?
In the wild, no. That's the thing too. And maybe it's my age. Maybe the 18 to 23 crowd is seeing it on their dates or in the dating app profiles. No, because I think it targets a very young audience.
It does,
so it's not like, I mean, nobody of the sorts, like when I think like when the Andrew Tate guy was popular, like when his name would come up at like barbecues, it was something the guys would chuckle at and be like, oh, what the fuck are the kids doing these days?
Exactly.
It was very much like that. What I have been approached by, not necessarily guys looking to court me, is people in this space looking for grifters to join their fucking team. I have been approached by those people because I talk to men sympathetic. Like I do think like some of the creators that are female oriented that shit on that and say like, hey men, like this is terrible. Like listen to me shit on you are doing the wrong thing too. Like if you want people to listen to you and get away from this stuff, don't call people stupid. But because I've taken a sympathetic role, and I genuinely believe like let's lift men up who are lonely, struggling with dating. Yeah. I've been courted by those people. And it's all about the money. None of them believe a goddamn thing they're saying.
Isn't that funny? You don't have to hate them because they're misogynist. You should hate them because they are trying to swindle people. Because they're trying to fuck over vulnerable people. Exactly. And that is the most unmanly, unmasculine, toxic, stupid, lame bullshit. Yeah. And you can quote me on that. I would love to have a chat with them.
None of these people give a fuck about you.
Loser, weak bitch.
And the fucking, if you want to profit off lonely people who are struggling, you can kindly go fuck yourself. But I think, we're coming up on time. We had an impassioned episode. Not every episode will be like this, but I think these are kind of a big issue. I think, my male audience, struggles with this message kind of being shoved down their throat, or, they're struggling to come out of, believing in something like this. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, like, your person is out there. Yeah, clean your room. Be the best version of yourself. But holy shit, don't fucking hate people. And these fringe personalities you see on the internet are not real life. And then to finally say we're all getting old. But getting older is a blessing. Not everyone's afforded that opportunity. There are a lot of people who, pass before it's their time. And it's very tragic and very sad. And they give anything to have the wrinkles on your face and, the problems with seeing the sports scores. I need to get glasses the way that you do. And, thank your lucky stars, God, whatever you believe in, for the fact that you're still here and we're all getting older and more decrepit by the second.
Word up. But we are continuing to have enriching experiences, regardless of how we look and how our bodies feel. We're always learning and growing, and a lot of people miss out on those opportunities. So.
Exactly. I love you all. And we had one big question and some little questions, and, pray for our comment section, pray for the TikTok clips. Peace out. We'll see you. Pray for the comment section. Love you guys.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.